All right, I thought I would just record a quick clip for you since I have the technology and you might not be available to chat right now, and that's okay. So what I was going to show you is kind of the supplies and then like how I set it up, just to explain the process if you do decide that you want to do this. And then I'll show you how to actually wire wrap some that are ready to be wire wrapped, and then how to attach them to the frame where there's space left to be attached. Okay, so this is kind of been my setup. As you can see, I have my frame right here. Like I was telling you in the text, first thing I did was I took the frame and I cleaned it up because it was a secondhand frame. And then I turned it around. Let me put it where you can actually see it a little better. And if you can see, the staples are kind of ugly, but I'm working on a solution to how to fix that. But I took chicken wire and I stapled it to the frame so that I could attach the chicken wire to the actual frame itself and have something to attach beads on. And then, I started putting the beads on once I was ready. But before I was ready, first things first, I had bought this little set of beads at Walmart. The reason I picked them is, one, they were clear, so they would take the light in, but they had color to them. And then two, because it had different shapes and sizes. I don't know how well you can tell in the packaging, but just to give you an idea. And then it had kind of a rainbow effect colors wise, so that's why I picked what I picked. And they were plastic, so I didn't have to worry about them breaking if they were outside, and I think in theory they will last well, so we'll see. This is the first time I'm doing this. The next thing that you're going to need if you decide that you're going to make these are you're going to need findings and fasteners, is what these are called in jewelry making terms. But just to try to show you up close, these are called, here we go, focus, camera, focus, there we go. These are called eye pins because they have the hook at the end here, and what you do is you actually hold them upside down like this so that the hoop is at the bottom, and then you string your beads from the top, and then you wrap the beads, which I'll show you how to do. Okay, so camera's not doing a great job of focusing on it. Sorry, I'm trying to get it to focus. It does not want to pick it up. All right, so that's an eye hoop. This one, which is probably hard to tell also, is what we call a head pin. It kind of looks a little bit like a nail. It's got a flat head. No, come on, focus. I don't know if it's picking it up. Maybe? Okay, there. So it's got a flat head at the top here. And just like the eye hoop, you hold it upside down like this. And you string your beads onto it like that. And then they sit flat and flush against the tip here. And then you wire wrap again. Okay, so this is what you put your beads on. This is what I've strung my beads onto the chicken wire over here with, even though I know it's hard to see, but I'll show you what that looks like. And then I've attached those strung beads onto the chicken wire using what's called jump rings. Maybe if the camera will focus. Literally, it's just a circle, and then if you can find it, it's got a little spot where the wire ends and it comes together, and then you can pull this apart super, super easy. And then I use those to hook onto the chicken wire. So it's kind of tedious and time consuming, and it probably took, I would say, over 100 of these to attach to the chicken wire, which also means that in total I have over 100 beaded pieces that I'm going to be attaching to the chicken wire eventually. So that's kind of been my setup. And then the other thing that you need is pliers. So I'm just going to kind of show you what those look like. Now these I've had for years because they're a part of my jewelry making stuff anyways. And all of these things, with the exception of the plastic beads that are sitting right here in this case, are ones that I've used and had for years, especially making jewelry and then teaching the jewelry class. But here are my pliers. I have these ones here. These are what we call wire cutters because they're angled. So on this side, you can see you have a deep groove right here. And then on the back side, they sit flush because that is where you put the wire to cut it. Okay, so wire cutters, really helpful, especially when you're wrapping beads and they don't take up the entire post. So then you have excess and you can cut it off. Then we have flat nose pliers, which are meant to be used to squeeze things together. Okay, they do actually have a part in here where you could cut like wire cutters, but they're not as sharp as the ones I showed you before. So these ones are your pinchers. They pull things apart. You can stick them into like the wire hoops and pull it apart like that, but you can also use it to pinch things back together. Really handy. And then I have 2 sets of what we call needle nose pliers. These ones are the ones I probably use the most, but they are a little bit shorter and a little bit thicker than this pair. This pair you can tell are really thin at the top, so you can get things to be really small when you're wire wrapping, which is a little bit more convenient depending upon how much space you have. But in general, you need pliers. I would recommend a set pretty similar to this. At the bare minimum, you should probably have these 3 if you're going to do wire wrapping. You don't necessarily need 2 pairs of wire nose, but I would recommend wire cutters and I would recommend flats and then something to loop around for when you're wire wrapping. And it is easier if you have 2 pairs of these because then you can use one to wrap the metal around and then you can use the other, so both hands are being operated at this point, to grab onto the tail of the wire that you're wrapping around the post. And I'll show you what that looks like, so maybe it'll be a little clearer. Okay, that's what I started with, and that's what I would recommend you start with if you decide that you do want to do this. And then, because I had this hoop and I knew how much space I had chicken wire wise, I took a little bit of time to write out a design of how I thought I wanted to put the beads on. And that took a little bit of doing because there were a couple of patterns that I wanted to do and then it didn't end up working. Anyways, so I counted up my total number of jump rings, which at that point was, was 102. So I have 102 jump rings on there, but I think I took a few off because you couldn't see them. I started writing out a pattern this way. I thought it was going to work, but I didn't have enough beads for that. Then I came up with a different pattern over here. And then I had a different pattern down here. And then this is the final pattern that I landed on, which I don't know if that makes sense, but starting at the top edges, I decided to do clears around where I had put my black and brass, because I was trying to bring in something that would match the frame, but not necessarily be light catching. And then I did a design based off of that. So once I did all of my math and figured out how many beads I needed and how many wire wrapped beads I needed of different colors, I started putting them onto the frame. Okay. So I know it might be hard to tell, but I placed my black beads first and kind of did a pattern around. So one at top, one at center, one at bottom, one at left center, one at right center. And then I went in with these like brassy colored beads. I don't know if you can see them super well. And did them in a 4 square so that I kind of had something to work around, and it just gave me more control pattern wise. Then I decided I was going to do clears in the corner to be kind of light catching. And then I decided pattern wise, I was kind of going to go rainbow with the colors that I picked, but I was going to start dark and go interior to the light. So that's why I have the dark blue going to light blue, going to green, and then there will be orange and yellow. And then the middle row, if you see, has all of the colors that I'm putting onto this in the same row. Okay, so that's how I decided how to set it up. And then now I'm going to show you how to wire wrap a bead so that you have it to be able to hook on individually to the chicken wire. And when I say that this is tedious, I mean that this is tedious and it's time consuming, and you definitely need to have patience. All right, so I don't know how well you can see it. Ooh, gosh. But I kind of have my beads separated out, especially for my yellows, onto the eye and head pins that I want to use so that I'm ready to go and I know the number that I need for those. So should be ready in general for those now. In total I need 18. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab both of my needle nose pliers and I'm going to start taking these beaded sections that I've put together, because now I need to wrap them and put a hoop at the top so that I can attach it to the jump ring over there. So typically the way that I do that is I put my fingers at the top, just spacing wise, so that I have about a finger width space between the top bead and where my pliers are going to grab. You can be more or less generous, and as you get better at it and get used to doing wire wrapping, you can decide how much space that you need in order to make a hoop for what you feel comfortable. And then I'm going to start to bend the wire, which I know might be a little hard to see. So now the point that was up is hanging right here. Okay. Now that I have a curve going in my wire, I'm going to grab my other pair of needle nose pliers. So I'm holding this one in my left hand, crimped over where I just twisted it. I'm going to grab the end of the wire over here, and I'm going to pull it around like so to start getting a loop. Actually, okay. This is a decision I'm making on the fly because, one, I have too much space between where I was just trying to put that. So I am actually going to put my hoop in a little bit lower with the other pair of pliers and do a double loop. There. All right, I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. Okay. I'm not sure how well it's going to show up on camera, but I did one loop, and then see how the wire is starting to come back up around. It's getting ready to do a second loop. So I am going to just shift the angle of how I have my pliers in here. I'm going to take this wire. There we go. I'm going to take this wire. I'm going to pull it down and around. And you do have to adjust the angle of your hands sometimes because you get into your own way. And then slowly but surely, and this is going to be so hard to show you, let me see if I can turn the camera angle around, because I think I can get it tighter to be able to show you what the wire wrapping looks like. Hang on. All right, I'm not promising much for video quality this way, but I am trying to show you what I'm doing. So if you can kind of see, I took the wire and I pulled it around in front of these two hoops that I had put up here. So now I'm starting to wrap it around directly underneath of the hoops that I put in. And I'm gonna keep grabbing this little tail and I'm gonna keep wrapping it around. As you do that, you're gonna have to move the bead to be able to keep grabbing the end without it getting in the way. If it was super long, I would just go ahead and cut it after I've got one or two wraps around, just for ease. And you can see it's not looking very pretty or very clean. My double loop is spaced apart. I can fix that once all is said and done. My most important part is just making sure that this wrap is as tight as I can to the bottom, and then I can go back and clean it up. So sometimes it's a little bit more force induced. maybe you can start to see what I'm talking about. Okay, so you just have to keep moving it around to be able to find the tail, which I don't know, is it showing? Let's see if I can get it to focus on it a little better. So the tail's sticking up right here. I am going to keep grabbing that, and I'm going to keep pulling it around as best as I can. And when it gets to a point where I can no longer grip it or do anything with it, I have two options. I can either kind of use the pliers as pliers, meaning I can start to bend it with force, or I can cut it. I am going to choose to bend it with force because it's short enough now that I'm not sure I could cut it smoothly without damaging my bead. So I'm going to grab the flat nose pliers. I'm going to find my end again, which started trying to go upward. I am just going to pull it back down, and then I'm going to start to kind of use the pliers to get it to go around the bead as best as I can without crimping the wire. And I don't know how well it's actually picking this up on camera because it is pretty teeny tiny, but I'm trying to show you. So the wire now, if you can see it, the tail is tucked up really closely underneath of that bead, and it's sitting flat flush to the rest of the twist that was underneath. Okay, so that's what it looks like when you wire wrap a bead. Okay, so this is now my wire wrapped piece. Now I'm going to go ahead and fix this part at the top because I don't want my loop to have two loops separate like that. So once again, I'm going to take these flat nose pliers. I am going to put it over the top of both so that both are inside of the plier. And I'm just going to use the plier to bend them closer together and to straighten out my loop so that when it hangs, it will hang straight. Okay, so now you can see it's much closer together. It looks more like it's just one piece instead of very obviously two separate, so that when it is hanging sideways, it looks like it could be one piece or just really thick wire. Okay, so that's what a bead wire wrap looks like. Now I am going to take this piece and I'm going to attach it to the sun catcher just so you can see what that looks like. What I'm going to use to do that are these needle nose pliers and most likely the flat nose pliers because I'm going to have to squeeze the jump ring shut again. So give me a second and I'll grab the frame. Okay. And I am, I am going to hook or start hooking the yellows right underneath of the green here. I don't know how well you can see that. So the hoops or the rings that are hanging up here, like right here. Oops, I can't get the camera angle, hang on. Okay, the hoop that is hanging right here is going to be where I'm going to put the first one. And it would be easier if I had all the yellow ones wrapped already, because then I could figure out my pattern. But just to show you how to do it, I'm going to go ahead and hook it on and hope that I can catch the right angle. Try to catch the right angle for you. I might start on the bottom layer instead. So this layer up here and this layer right here are both going to be yellow. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it down here where I think it'll be a little easier to show you. So all I'm doing is I'm grabbing these needle nose pliers. I am going to kind of put a little bit of force just to push this ring up so that I can get my pliers inside of it like so. And then I'm just going to open it by pushing it apart with the pliers from the inside. I'm then going to take the beaded piece that I just made. I'm going to loop it through the hoop. I'm going to let it hang on the back side just to make it a little easier for me. I don't know how well this is catching. Let's see. Okay, so my hoop is open. I have my bead threaded through it. And then I'm going to take these flat nose pliers and I'm going to take them around the ring. If you can see, I don't know if you see the other end. Okay. And I'm going to start to push them closed. And then you might have to go over them a couple of times because you want to make sure that ring closes. Otherwise, over time, the bead could, with weight and with wind and movement, it could start to push it open and then your beading can fall off of it. So you want to push it closed pretty good. And it is hard to do one-handed. Sometimes, honestly, it's easier to work with 2 sets of pliers in your hand. And then I just pull the bead through once I'm done closing it so that it hangs on this side. And that, my friend, is the first yellow one up there to kind of start showing what the finished product is going to look like. Ta-da! Now, I know the video might not have been that good on this. If it was hard to see, if it doesn't make sense, I can see if I can try to record it a different way to share with you. But anyways, that's how you wire wrap. That's how you attach it to the frame. And that's how I've been making this beaded sun catcher. So it does take quite a while because each piece takes a little bit to put together. And then once you get it together, as in the beaded sections, you do have to decide what kind of pattern you want to use, especially because I have different shaped beads. So anyways, hope that helps. Hope that makes sense. And if not, let me know and I'll see what I can do.